Hey everyone, how's it going? I am Xeracon and I am back once again. In case you haven't heard, there's this hit game that came out recently called Palworld. It's commonly referred to as Pokemon with Guns. I honestly never even heard of this game until after it released, even though it was announced about 3 years ago. After playing it for about 15 hours, I want to give my impressions on the game and what I would like to see happen as it goes on and eventually leaves early access. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to go ahead and get the bad stuff out of the way first. My main gripe with the game is the current optimization. The minimum requirements for Palworld are an Intel i5 3570K, 16GB of RAM, and a GTX 1050 2GB version. The recommended settings require an Intel i9-99-600K, 32GB of RAM, and an RTX 2070. That's a pretty large gap. Now, I'm using an AMD Ryzen 5 4600H, 16GB of RAM, and a Radeon RX 5600 XT Mobile. So while I'm not reaching the recommended settings, I'm definitely above the minimum requirements apart from the RAM. That being said, when I first started the game, it ran poorly. I was only getting about 35 frames per second. I didn't think the settings I had were a problem, so I did some adjusting by bumping down grass and shadow textures and filling with the anti-aliasing. That didn't do anything. I went back and turned everything except textures down to low, disabled AA, and even lowered the resolution, and nothing worked. It was only after turning textures down to low did the game hit 60 FPS. That astounded me. I have never had to lower the textures of a game all the way to make sure the game hits 60 FPS, even after lowering everything else. In fact, I always tried to keep the main textures as high as possible while sacrificing other aspects like shadows, water quality, and grass if it means still hitting 60 FPS. Regardless, that was the only thing holding me back. I was able to turn everything else back up to medium, turn AA to TSR, and make the resolution 1080p again. I don't know why this one thing was a problem, though fortunately, even on low, the textures don't look too bad, and the shadows and grass settings on low look way worse. But I hope this all gets fixed in the final version, because there's no way that my performance should be that bad because of one setting. Additionally, the frame rate will tank if you're going between two large areas, almost as if the game is loading both of them at once. It went down to around 32 FPS until I was resolute on which area I wanted to go to. Then it went back up again. I should also mention that you should not play this game on a Steam Deck. No matter what I tried, I couldn't get this to hit 60 FPS. It only went up to about 45 at most. Maybe more powerful handhelds like the ROG Ally or Lenovo Legion Go can play it at 60 FPS, but the Steam Deck does not at this time. Hopefully optimization patches will make this better. Another problem I have with this game is with the character AIs. Sometimes pals or syndicate members will walk into walls when they're trying to do something else. This allows me to get in free shots at them, or in the case of the pals in my home base, they get stuck trying to get to food. It's even worse when they get stuck in the ground, and I have to put them into a box from my base computer and bring them back out just so they won't get stuck anymore. And I get that this is in early access, but these are problems that should be made known so the final version is a much more polished version. But with those negatives out of the way, I want to talk about the good stuff now. One of the games I heard Palworld being compared with was Ark Survival Evolved, but I've never played that game. However, the game really reminds me of Breath of the Wild. And I don't just mean because of the opening premise, the little jingles here and there, or even the scenery, like the one church that looks like the remnants of the Temple of Time. What I mean is the world itself. It was made to explore. Similar to when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time, I wanted to see what was out there in Palworld. I want to explore and travel all around the islands. Nighttime and higher level pals were the only thing that kept me in check from going too far too soon. And I spent about 12 hours of gameplay before I went and fought the first tower leader. That's how addicting the exploration is. The next thing I want to talk about is how useful the pals are for you as assistants. As I mentioned earlier, the game has been called Pokemon with Guns, but I disagree with that statement. The pals are a part of the game, yes, but you could honestly remove them completely and have the game still function for the most part. The only exception would be for the tower boss fights, but you can still explore, craft, survive, and fight thugs. What the pals do is help make things more easy and efficient for you. After you set up enough things, your base can be pretty much self-sustaining. My base currently has all my set pals doing all the important labor that I would need to do, and even though they might get tired, they can still take a break, come back later, and still have plenty of materials and food prepared for me. Now, I don't know how things can or will go if I wanted to make a full factory like it's presented on the Steam page, but for now, things are going well. The pals are content, and I get my supplies. And no one has been butchered. Yet. But I also want to point out how cool it is how you can use the pals in your party out in the world. Anyone who's played the Pokemon games knows about how you can use the Pokemon in your party for certain things depending on the move that the Pokemon has. For example, you can ride a Pokemon in the water, smash boulders that are in your way, and other things. In Palworld, the options allow you to do much more than make story progress. Yes, you can ride your pals, but you can also have certain ones follow you outside and attack you once you initiate a fight. This essentially means that you can have more than one pal fighting alongside you in the world, making battles easier, especially with tougher pals. The only thing you have to worry about is making sure your pals don't kill a pal you're trying to catch when its health is low. And speaking of, another thing I like is how you can see the catch rate for the pals before you throw the pal sphere. I like knowing my chances of success so I can either make an attempt, try to use a better sphere, or deal more damage. Yes, Pokemon Go did something similar by having the color of a ring determine the difficulty of catching a Pokemon, but it didn't say exactly what your odds of capturing the Pokemon would be. This essentially perfects that. I've heard some people question how popular this game will be several months from now and if people would still play it. Personally, I say yes. There's more that the devs want to do, and there's a firm foundation already in place. Additionally, one of the best things about this game, in my opinion, is that multiplayer is optional. I think multiplayer is really what hurts a lot of games these days because the developers always feel the need to keep people playing. It's why live service games are the way that they are. But because the team behind Palworld made a solid game that can be enjoyed by yourself, multiplayer between friends is just a bonus. So would I recommend this game? Based on what I've played so far, yes, I would. Even if you didn't wait until it left early access, I would still give it my recommendation. It definitely has its issues, but I think that positives outweigh the negative. And while it's early into the year, so far, this actually is my game of the year hands down. But that will do it for today. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on Palworld in the comments below. Are you playing it? What are your thoughts so far? Have you not played it yet but are interested in it? How's the performance going for you? Let me know. So until next time everyone, I am iamxeracon signing off. Have a good one.